Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey. Our topic is grief versus mourning. Can you do one without the other? And we are so fortunate we have an expert in-house. He's actually the star of our show. His name is Doug Lawrence. Let's bring him out and find out how he's been doing. Hi, Doug. Nice to see you.
Good morning. I had to think for a moment as what time of the day is this? But yeah, thank you for that. And hello to our listening and viewing audience around the world. And welcome to US Global Radio and TV and to our show today. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And just as a little bit of an inside tip is that if you're unable to watch the show today, please go to our YouTube channel, the USA Global Radio and TV YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find the show there and get caught up on what's taking place or going to take place today. But just as importantly, on the shows that have already aired and that you didn't get the chance to listen to them live with us. So there's a little inside tip for you.
Thanks so much for that, Doug. We appreciate it. So your work is really in helping other people, and you have been sharing your story here on our platform and other places as well. And many times it brings up memories, it brings up pain, and we have to walk through that. So you are an entrepreneur, you're the founder of TalentC, and you're an international certified mentor and an international best-selling author. How is it, Doug, that you've decided to share your story about losing your wife, knowing that it brings up so many things for you?
You know, I think the most important thing was that me being able to experience that gave me sort of the inside track, or at least a better understanding of what others would be going through. And so then I was perhaps in a bit better of a position to be able to provide help to folks that are going through much the same sort of thing, and to, I guess, to be comfortable in sharing, what I'm experiencing.
Thank you so much. And we were talking a little bit backstage about some things that are coming up, and we're going to dive into that a little bit because you've given me permission to talk to you and ask you questions about it. And before we go there, I'm just wondering, can you explain to us what is grief versus what is mourning?
Yeah, the best way to describe it is mourning is the outward expression. So we're in the grieving process, and when it comes to, we don't share our emotions as much if we're just from the purest concept, I guess, is if I'm grieving, I may not be sharing my emotions as much as I possibly could. But, when I mourn, I go through periods where I need to talk, kind of like what we're doing today is, I need to be able to talk my way through that. And on top of that, I need to also be comfortable with, or know or understand that I'm going to be periods where I'll have to go through a bit of a crying period. I need to, what are some of the coping mechanisms? So is it writing, journaling? I'm writing another book, so that helps me. Well, sort of helps me, go through and figure out what that's all about. But it's all about the expression of your grief that you're going through. So we all experience grief in some way, shape, or form, but we have a tendency to keep that grief bottled up inside when in fact we need to mourn. And by mourning, that's the outward expression of that grief. So like I said, the actual emotional part of it. And if we don't do that, that can cause us more harm than good if we're not able to mourn in a proper concept or context, I guess. If we're not able to do that, that's actually doing more emotional, mentally, physically. It can cause or do harm to us as individuals.
Wow, there's a lot there to sort of talk about. Something that comes up for me is when you think about talking about something, maybe you're already in the midst of doing something. So you have work to do, or you have family members, and yet there's something that you need to talk about, but there never seems to be the perfect time. And you're talking about grief, and you have all these other things that are going on. And you know that once you open that door, that it's going to require more work, but yet you still have other things that you have to do. So how do we manage all of that?
Well, the most important thing is that you need to make sure that you take care of number one. And so by, sort of saying all this work related stuff and, other sort of things, I need to take care of those. Well, if you don't take care of yourself first, then you're going to have a real difficult time able to, to deal with all the other, the grief related, the mourning related things that you need to actually, which are a priority that you actually need to take care of. And I know, like for myself, it's making sure that's a priority, because I know what happens to me as a person. I shut down if I'm not able to express myself, or if I can't find that person that I need to talk to. I will shut down emotionally, mentally, physically, all of those things. I'll shut down, and I kind of close myself off to the world, so to speak. And I should not do that, because I know that's dangerous, because, if I don't do the right things, like if I don't talk my way through something to sort of be able to say, okay, this is what, this is what I'm observing, and this is what I need to do to address that. If I don't do that, then I end up in this loop that I can't get out of.
Thanks so much for your honesty and being candid about that. Doug, you shared something before we started the show, and I think it's something that typically happens to people, not just during grieving, but just in life, where we block things out. We put up this wall, and it's kind of like, that didn't happen. And then something triggers us to remember that it did happen, or we want to work on ourselves and we're forced to go back there. Why does that happen, that we block things out?
I think it's denial. It's not wanting to accept the fact that something tragic happened. And I'll use, my wife Deborah passing. I have a segment of time where I don't recall anything that took place in that segment of time. And about all that I can recall right now, and I'm still going through processing and working on it, but all I can recall right now is that there was a time when she went from not being in the hospital to the first hospital that she ended up in, and then being transferred from there to the second hospital. So kind of going from the general hospital that took care of COVID and all that other stuff to the second hospital was more of a cancer, was their specialty. That was the cancer hospital, for lack of a better choice of words. And so I've unbeknownst to me until I started reading this book, and it forced me to start to rethink things and kind of journal as I'm going through, and I'm reading the book, and then I'm pausing and I'm thinking about, okay, what does that mean to me, and whereabouts am I in my journey and stuff. And I was not able to recall a lot of it. In fact, even this morning I was thinking about, pre-show conversation, I was trying to unlock the door, unlock my subconscious to let that stuff out, because I know there's more to our story than what I've already told. And a large part of that is the fact that I've blocked it out, and I blocked it out obviously because I keep telling myself that she's not gone. So, and I know that's not the case. Gosh, how long have we been having we've been having these conversations now for quite a while, and it's been, I think I'm in year 3 of Deborah having passed, and yet I still keep thinking that she's not gone.
Whoa. Doug, my heart just goes out to you, and especially you're here on live TV and you have to go through this again. And if you want to stop at any time, please just let me know.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. Do you need a moment?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, good. So in what you're sharing, what comes up for me is people might be thinking in cases outside of grief and mourning, when we don't remember things, because I think they call it selective memory because it's inconvenient. To your knowledge, is our brain really the leader of what we remember, what we don't, or does it come from somewhere else, a desire or a lack of desire to remember?
I think it's probably a combination of, like, I know for me, the big, and I think, our listening and viewing audience need to understand that, I'm dealing with a sort of a lockout of information, and it's coming from a couple different spots. Obviously, I've blocked some time with when Deborah was still alive, but I also have the impact of the loss of her has also played tricks on my memory and it's caused, what do they call it? Widow brain is kind of the terminology they use, where I have, as the example I'll use, I'll be going into the basement in my house to get something, and I'll get to the bottom of the stairs, and then I don't remember why I'm down there. And, there's different examples of that have taken place. And most people that are going through grieving, and maybe not understanding the mourning part, but going through the grieving process, will tell you that that's something that they experience, is that they used to be, sharp as a whip at being able to recall and do things and all sorts of things like that. And now, because of what's transpired, it's not the case. And I part of me wants to say that it's our brain's way of maybe protecting us by, certainly for me, for blocking, when I think of the time frame that was blocked, and as I'm still going through trying to unlock that, there's stuff that's taken place there that my subconscious, I'll use that as kind of my go-to right now. My subconscious is saying, you don't really need to talk about that, or you don't really need to, think about that. And yet I know that I do need to do that. So I think that our brain can control, the amount of information and what that information is, as a means to be able to provide some form of protection for us.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much. Would it be fair to say that when we have a broken heart, or our heart is heavy, that our mind then comes in to protect our heart as well?
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
So, for people out there who are going through something like this and they're identifying with what it is you're saying, now it's like, okay, now I get it. What am I supposed to do?
If you are indeed going through, kind of what you going through having a period of time blocked in that, you you need to be able to, number one, find somebody you're comfortable with and explain that to them. So, ideally, if you could find somebody who is going through a similar experience, it would be a lot easier for you to be able to deal with it. But the big thing is, don't shut down. You need to make sure that you're sharing how you're feeling and what it is that you're, when you think of what's been blocked out, discuss that openly as much as you possibly can, because hidden inside all of that will be the reasons why. And I'm not there yet. And what I'm also going to suggest is be mindful of the triggers that, as you're going through, say you follow in kind of my footsteps, and you are, say, reading a book that deals with, somebody else who's experienced, the loss of a loved one, and now all of a sudden they've got this blockage of time that they can't account for. So if that's the case, you need to make sure that you're open and you talk about that, because the more you talk about it, the greater the chance is that over a period of time, it's going to unlock the door and let that blocked information come out. I'm not, like I said, I'm not there yet. We've still got a ways to go, but I know that if I persevere, that I'm going to get, I'm going to find out why, or be able to understand why. And I mean, for me right now, my answer is that if I continue with it as being blocked information, it's because I have this belief that Deborah's not gone, and I know that that's not the case.
Thank you so much, Doug. I want to ask you if this has ever happened to you, but for me, I know when a relationship with someone was over, maybe there was a song or something that was special, and I would hear it on the radio, and I would download it, and I would play it over and over and over, and I'd be crying. I feel sick to my stomach, and I would say to myself, what is wrong with you? But I guess when I think back on it, you just shared, by listening to that song, maybe the relationship was still alive, or maybe it could still be alive. And now today, when I hear songs like that, I don't even want to hear them. Like, oh my gosh, please, that was old news. What does that mean? What was coming up for me? And if you've had that experience, what was coming up for you?
Well, I know for me, the one song, and it was Deborah's favorite song, was Hallelujah. And I try, I'll play it every so often. It'll pop up in one of my feeds, and I'll go in and listen to it. There's a young female artist out of the UK that does an absolutely beautiful rendition of Hallelujah, probably one of the best I've heard in a long time. And I actually will play that every so often when I need to sort of kind of touch base with reality, if nothing else. It helps me with not so much my grieving process, but the mourning process. So the outward expression, so it can act as a catalyst for me to maybe have a good cry. And usually I feel better after I do that. So, a lot of people that I've also, talked with have said that they have, 2 or 3 songs, or they've created a soundtrack of multiple favorite songs that they will sometimes turn on and put on their headset and just zone everything out and not think of anything, just listen to the music. And for me, you know, I have to dig always. I'm more prone to wanting to dig a little deeper to find out, you know, okay, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling and all that sort of stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for answering that. Something else that comes to mind, and we're not talking about your situation, we're just talking in general so we can help people all over, is do you think as humans, there's some part of us that is an advocate for punishing ourselves for something that we didn't do or something that didn't come to fruition? And so in our subconscious, when we do have a loss, there's part of us that just continues to beat ourselves up as opposed to walking ourselves through the process.
I don't. I agree to some extent with what what you're saying, and I don't know if it's so much beating ourselves up as it is sort of. And I'm going to take a shot at this, but how I would interpret it would be that it's not so much about beating myself up or anyone who's listening beating themselves up. It's more so about the idea or the aspect of I need to have that conversation, and it may not be a pleasant conversation because there are some things that I need to actually get out on the table. And so that's kind of the how I would view that.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one, isn't it? Because we don't want to think that we purposefully are torturing ourselves. But at the same time, like when I mentioned back about the songs, it's a decision we make about what we put into our head, right? What we read. And you're talking about this book. You could be reading another book and having a different experience, but yet you're drawn to this particular book. And even though things are coming up for you that are very painful, you have decided you're going to continue to persevere and read it.
And no, it's normally for me reading books is a challenge. So this one is one of the ones that kind of comes to the top because I'm having a difficult time, and I'm trying to figure out why, but I'm having a difficult time in putting the book down. So I need to, to read, keep reading, or well, not keep reading, but I need to read a section and then put it down for a bit and go and do something else, just because of the emotional tag that it plays on my heart and my emotional stability, for I guess, for lack of a better choice of words. So it's I think, that certainly our listening and viewing audience, if you do have a book that you get a similar sort of thing, you need to let it help you help guide you to where you need to go so that you're, number one, able to grieve, but number two, more importantly, be able to express your grief through mourning. And that's the most, that's what I hope you'll take away from any book that you get, is there are the two. There's grief and there's mourning, and mourning is how, that's the emotional part of the grieving process, and we need to do both.
Thank you, Doug. And while someone's going through this, whether it's the actual loss of someone or career or whatever the case may be, where and what role does joy or comedy or humor play? Is that taboo while you're going through this process?
No, I don't think so. I think that if comedy, humor, if that's something that you're good with and okay with, then I think by all means, you need to interject that where possible, to be able to use that as a coping mechanism. So definitely need to, to have that. But if it's something that you're not that great at, then you need to figure out something else that's going to work for you.
Would you say that there's some kind of unwritten formula about what you're absorbing, what you're reading, what you're hearing in terms of uplifting or maybe more functional to help you learn and see what's coming up for you and get through the process? So in other words, would you say, okay, you need to have some kind of levity in your life. At the same time, you have to have some realistic aspect of it so that you can find out if you're blocking anything. You can actually do the work that needs to be done so you can heal.
Well, there is work that needs to be done for sure. You know, especially to, as I'm finding out, my ability to unlock things is not as strong as what I thought it would be. And so as a result of that, I have to work a bit harder at being able to get myself to a place where I can unlock some of those memories and perhaps better understand why I blocked them in the first place. Because then that's something that I can share with other people who are going through a similar, you know, experience and saying, and having all those questions that I've had, I now, you know, I'm getting there. I'm working on figuring out what the answers are. And then I'm going to be able to share that with those that are in a similar situation.
Thanks, Doug. You mentioned about that you had blocked it, and you alluded to this earlier. So what I would like to have you discuss is, I know for myself, there's a number of things that I blocked throughout my life that I didn't even realize, but I have a conversation with somebody and they're saying, oh yeah, I'm thinking, wow, I don't remember that at all. And even when I forced myself to go back there, I still don't remember it. So the words that you said that you blocked it, does that mean that we make a conscious decision? We were talking about the heart and the brain. And if we make that conscious decision that, okay, that period of time was just too painful, I don't want to go back there. How long after the situation happens do we make that decision? Is it immediate? Like, oh, this was horrible, I'm not going to remember this, or I'm going to, you know, block this out. What are your thoughts?
I think what will drive that, number one, is that if nobody else brings up things that had occurred during that time period, I've blocked some of this for coming up 3 years, or actually I'm probably in my third year. It's been over 3 years now, I guess, where had I have not kind of knocked on the door, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. But as a result of reading the book and realizing, oh my goodness, there's a time frame here that I must have blocked. And so I need to, obviously unlock that door and let that information come out to sort of fill in the pieces to the puzzle and all of that. But I think, that I would probably just leave well enough alone and would not be so determined on sort of figuring things out and trying to kind of get all the pieces to the puzzle in alignment. And that if I had not have, picked up this book and started to read it, and all of a sudden I'm getting a flutter of flashbacks, but only bits and pieces, not enough that I can kind of piece it all together. And so that's something that I definitely need to be able to do going forward. But I think that it's human nature being what it is that if I don't have to go down that rabbit hole, I'm definitely not going to go. Subconsciously, I'm not going to go. But the other part of me says, but you do need to go there eventually. And so hopefully that kind of answered the question in a roundabout way.
Absolutely. And I see you're getting somewhat of a suntan there. If you want to relocate or something, I could take you off for a second, but are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, good. So you just shared about things that you've blocked. I've shared that I've had things that I've blocked, and maybe it's human nature and we all have things that we've blocked. And I'd like to just have you share what you just said, that you have to go back there in this particular case about your wife and your relationship, what she went through. For those of us who are not in mourning of the loss of a person, but we know that there are things that we don't remember. How much of an effort should we make for everything that we realize we don't remember? So has that become part of our life? That's part of a daily ritual. We do our affirmations, and then we look at blockages and put some time into that as well.
Well, the short answer is yes, because we need to think about what impact do those blockages actually have on us as individuals. And so for me, if I use myself as the example, the idea is that if I don't unlock those doors, there's part of Deborah's story that goes untold. And that story could be helpful to others. And once I kind of clear that energy, that blockage, once I clear that, I know in my heart, I know in my mind, I know in my heart that help me to better understand what took place and sort of the sequencing of events and all those things. So I can't let it go and not and not deal with it.
And is it possible, from the learning that you're having through this experience, that is a set of skills that can prevent you from having additional blockages in the future about other situations?
It's definitely a skill set that I think, especially if you're working with somebody who, is going through a similar set of experiences, your lived experience, your things that you've already experienced are such that, you're going to be able to bring value to a relationship with somebody that is, like I said, experiencing similar things, simply because of what it is that you've already gone through. And like for me, I just keep thinking that I can't wait to pick the book up, even though I know what it's going to do to me from an emotional perspective. But I can't wait to go and pick that book up and start to do some more reading, because I know that what will happen will be so profound that it's worth the pain and suffering to get there.
That's a really powerful point. Thank you. One thing that's coming up for me is when I realize there are things that I have blocked that maybe I want to go back there or I don't, I start to question my sanity. I start to question my memory. I start to wonder, is my memory going? And it's something that's a whole other set of problems. So how do we balance that to decide if it's something that our brain has decided to keep us safe, or we have a real problem with our memory?
I don't think that it would be to that extent where, and I mean, it's a logical assumption that, I think I'm going crazy because I can't remember things and all that sort of stuff. That's a logical response. I know that being able to work through it and get to a place where it will, your subconscious will allow you to unlock that. And even if it's a little bit at a time, that you need to be able to go through and let that happen. It's emotionally, it's really important for you to be able to deal with that and unlock that door to let that information to come out. Because when I think of my experience, there's different things that occurred. There was, from the time of Deborah being sick to going to the first hospital. There's a bit of a blockage there. And then from the time frame from when she was in that hospital to being transferred to the other one, I have bits and pieces of memories that I still retain, and based on, you know, what took place, and I remember, and I'm going, well, why am I remembering that versus not something else? And it was because it was a memory that didn't have that huge of a what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't have as big an impact as perhaps some of the other stuff did. So, and what the memory was that when she moved from the one hospital to the other, I was asked to transport, I think there was 4 or 5 bags of clothing and stuff that she had acquired in the short period of time that she was at the hospital. So they wanted me to either, you know, come and take it home or bring it to the other hospital, which is what I ended up doing. And that part I remembered, and I remembered doing it. And I can still, even to this day, I can envision the one nurse pushing this cart with these bags of Deborah's belongings and saying, you know, okay, are you okay to take this stuff? And I was, yes, it's her stuff. I'll take it. So, you know, that particular memory seems to still be there, but some of the other stuff isn't.
Wow, it's interesting. And you know, Doug, as you're talking, you can't see this, but your whole screen has changed. You have this heavenly look with the birds that are coming out of your head. It's almost like Deborah's here with us right now. Yeah. So do you feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been a very deep and powerful share that you've done today. I thank you for that and for taking yourself back there. How can people reach out to you? You're available for people to hire you, to work with you. How does that process work, and how can people contact you?
So they can reach out and touch base with me, and we can go from there. But you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. So just direct message me. If you search for Doug Lawrence, it should pop up relatively easy. And then just direct message me and we'll get something set up to have a conversation. Or you can go to my website at www.talentc.ca. So www.talentc.ca, and go to the contact page and reach out to me that way. But probably just as easy for both of us is just to send me an email message to Doug.Lawrence. That's Doug.Lawrence, LAWRENCE at talentc.ca. So the word talent, letter C on the end.ca, and send me a message and we'll set up a time for us to have a conversation, and you know, we'll figure things out at that particular time point about what our relationship can or will look like, and go from there. And for those of you that are interested, I do have a couple books on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, so please take a look at those and see, you know, you never know, there may be a golden nugget in one of those 2 books that you'll be able to kind of take away from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doug. And thank you for everyone who's watching. Please do reach out to Doug. His time is very valuable. He's spending it here, sharing his story to inspire someone else to come forward and share theirs. We'll be right back with our next show, which is stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. And hopefully the sun will dissipate over you. All right. We'll be back soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.